The God of War games have always been filled with a rich, emotionally impactful narrative, going right back to the PlayStation 2 days, but that was taken to another level in 2018 when Sony Santa Monica brought out a brand new God of War, kind of rebranded the franchise, brought us a much more mature Kratos, and introduced his son, Atreus. It was a sensational game, a lot of people's favorite game of 2018, a lot of people's favorite game of all time, so of course Sony Santa Monica had a lot to live up to with the sequel, God of War Ragnarok, which is out now for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. Now, this is going to be my spoiler-free review on God of War Ragnarok for the most part, but there is a specific, substantial gameplay element that I do have to talk about, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But first, I want to tell you that the breadth and scope and quality of this game is absolutely breathtaking. There is so much beautiful work in here, from Bear McCreary's score to the incredible performances from all of the actors, and there are a lot more actors introduced in this game, or at least there's a lot more work for different types of actors to do in this game. It's very big, it's very expansive. You travel again across the 9 realms that were introduced in God of War in 2018. It's almost like this game kind of overlays over the world building that we saw in the 2018 game, where there is a little bit of a retraversal, there is a little bit of a re-exploration of areas that we've seen before, but environments have changed, weather patterns have changed, dynamics have changed, and of course there's so much more embellishment. There is a lot of lore in this game, a lot of rich details, a lot of answers to questions that were posed, particularly at the ending of the previous God of War experience. And so it's an incredible bookend to that core game, and I would encourage you to not play this first. Definitely, you're going to get way more out of this experience if you have played the God of War game from 2018. I can tell you that a lot of the core systems and mechanics and the way that you play the game, all of Kratos' furious attacks with the Blades of Chaos and the Leviathan axe and the shield stomps and smashes and parries that you can do, all of that stuff is carried over, and you start off incredibly powerful in this game. It's not like they have dropped everything and you've got to build your way back up. There is, of course, a building up and a leveling up, and there are new weapons to discover and new variations of weapons and all kinds of things to tune those weapons and refine them and make them even more powerful. And there is a bit of an RPG kind of element in here where you're managing your resources and you're always going back to the dwarves that will refine and replenish and refresh the armaments and the tools that you're going to need to be able to continue on your arduous adventure. There's a fun loop in that for sure, because you are kind of resource gathering and finding chests and getting all of the loot and all of the goodies that you can find to help you become much more powerful. And you're also going to encounter magic users and people across these different realms that will give you information, but also might give you tools and trinkets and gadgets that you might be able to employ as you progress. A lot of that same kind of core concept and core designs that we saw in the previous God of War game. And something that really hit me when I did my hands-on, my first sort of initial discussion around this game, the first 5 hours that I played, is that there's a bit of a Metroidvania to this game as well. And I don't know if I recognize that with the 2018 God of War or even the previous God of War games, where you get the tools that allow you to access areas that you saw before that you couldn't get to. It's really cool. The world feels very big and there's a lot to explore, but it's not without its constraints and restraints. That's one of the things that I think Sony Santa Monica has always placed in the God of War games. You couldn't just go everywhere. There was a tease of everywhere, and there was always been a tease of epic scale and size, and these just monstrous beasts that could come in from every angle and just take over an environment, but you couldn't just pivot the camera and go wherever you wanted to go. And that is true again in God of War Ragnarok. And I think it bothered me a little bit more this time than it did in God of War 2018. I felt a little bit more like I was being ushered down these corridors and these paths to these epic battles and epic sequences. And it was a little bit frustrating. I found that the invisible walls in the game started to bug me, and it reminded me of all the many, many games that I reviewed talking about invisible walls and how much invisible walls have been my nemesis for so long. And they are plentiful in God of War Ragnarok. There are also, though, some really interesting areas that allow you to imagine a much more open world God of War experience, where the paths open up and you can kind of go from encounter to encounter, and you can see something over the crest of a ridge that you know you can get to, and you can get into that battle. But those are just sort of interspersed throughout the core experience. For most of the game, you are traveling through specific predetermined paths that might have some kind of latch or door or magic sort of key that opens things up that allows you to continue forward. But it's very kind of straightforward, and sometimes it's a little bit circuitous. You can see that you need to get over there, but the invisible walls won't let you jump down into this spot and then climb up that way. You have to kind of find your way around, or unlock a door, or explode a barrel or something like that that will allow you to get over there. If you are familiar with the God of War core game experience, you're going to be comfortable with that, and you're going to recognize that that's just the way that these games have always been built. There is the tease that things could evolve from here, though, and become much bigger. And it's really hard not to compare and contrast the ambitiousness of the design and the incredible character development and all of these creatures and monsters and things that you encounter in this game, and also think about what Guerrilla Games has been doing with the Horizon Zero Dawn franchise, which is much more expansive and open world, but also, I think, equally ambitious and lots of really clever, creative applications of encounters in an open world space. And also absolutely gorgeous. And so I was thinking about Horizon Zero Dawn, especially Forbidden West. It's just so beautiful. It's like another level of gorgeousness on the PlayStation 5. And I believe that this is as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than anything that PlayStation Studios has ever crafted. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I also did feel hemmed in. I never lost that. Right from beginning to end of this game, I was constantly thinking, oh, I can go that way. And then Kratos would walk that way, and it would be like, nope, there's a barrier, I cannot go that way. Oh, I can go get that thing over there. Oh, nope, I can't. I need to go around and go back that way. I was totally able to put that aside and just get lost in this experience, and there were tons of times where I was saying, holy fucking shit. I cannot believe what the hell I am playing and seeing. This is so epic. Many, many times in this game where I felt like this might be the most epic experience I've ever had in a video game. But I also reflected on the fact that I felt that, I think, many times across God of War. God of War just leans in that direction. All of the ancient Greece stuff that we had with the PlayStation 2 era punched way bigger than its weight. You know, it was so ambitious on that platform, where Kratos was battling titans and just these epic scale monsters and creatures, and just getting into these things that just made him tiny, a little puny thing, just battling these massive things. And so we've always seen that around God of War. It's always just been about big, bold ideas, and that's absolutely exemplified here. The thing that's surprising, and this was, I think, really set up with the previous God of War games, is just how emotional this franchise has become, and how much you care about Kratos, and how beautifully represented his attempt to kind of put the violent past behind him and just care for his family and be a good father. It's just so well put together, and you really have empathy and compassion for this murderer, this monster, this literal God of War that has just killed and killed and killed, and that's what's defined him. He's just this grunting beast of a creation, and still you can see in his eyes that he just wants to do right by Atreus. And in this episode in God of War, Atreus has grown up, and he's a teenager now, and he's much more willful, and he's much more in Kratos' face, and he has a lot more ideas about who he wants to be, and doesn't want to be the embodiment, the shadow of Kratos. And Kratos doesn't want that either for his son. He wants his son to be better than him, but he doesn't have all of the tools. He doesn't have all of the skills to be this empathetic father and this supportive father. And so we see this head-to-head and this real battle between these two that care and love each other so much, but there is just this constant friction. And that is fully addressed in this, and it's so heart-wrenching, and there's some beautiful cinematic elements in there that sort of tie this family together, and this God of War's quest for peace that really are profoundly effective. And I was emotionally carried by this, absolutely. I was tearing up, and I was really hit by the humanity in this game, and the beautiful writing, and the absolutely stunning Stunning performances by everybody. And you know, there's been a big wait for this game, of course, because 2018's God of War was just so big and powerful and successful, and everybody wanted Ragnarok, myself included. And one of the things that came to light about why we had to wait so long for the sequel for Ragnarok was that Chris Judge got sick and needed some time to heal before he could go back and do the performance capture. And you understand why. He is central to this. He's an incredible Kratos. Everybody is fantastic, but Chris Judge as Kratos is so heartbreaking and unbelievable and nuanced in his performance, and you know that it's much more than just somebody showing up in a booth and recording stuff. Like, even in the grunts and the non-verbalized sounds that Chris Judge makes, there's weight and meaning and an emotional truth to them, and it's really powerful. I think that's what I'm coming away from Ragnarok the most, is that, like, yes, I'm taken along on this big epic journey of these fights between gods, you know, like Kratos having to reconcile with some of the choices that he and Atreus made in the first God of War game. So there are just massive brawls, just really satisfying epic battles that feel like they're shaking your whole living room or your whole gaming space. It felt like my TV was going to bust apart by how beautiful it was and how epic the battles were. But it's also powerful on a familial level, on a family level, on a characters caring for each other level. I kind of was teed up for that with the previous God of War game, but this is like a whole other level again, emotionally, which is just so surreal to me. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is, and it's a little bit into the spoiler territory. So I can tell you that I freaking love this game, and I'm going to score it really high. But if you want to check out now and just want to experience this thing fully independent of any commentary on any of the spoilery stuff, this would be the place to do it. But of course, the big kind of new addition to God of War Ragnarok is that you get to play as Atreus. And not just in sort of little side bits, some sort of tacked on elements in there, but big chunks of the game you are playing as Atreus. And you're also mixing and matching and teaming up with various other characters in the collective that is a part of this new God of War experience. And so there's a lot more interesting chatter that's going on between all of these characters. And what I will say is that if you are just a diehard, hardcore Kratos fan and all you want is Kratos, and I know that Sony must have been trying to balance this out, but there is tons of Kratos in here. You're not going to feel like they squandered Kratos or you didn't get enough Kratos. You're going to get a lot of awesome Kratos action in here. Atreus plays very differently from Kratos. He's got the incredible bow and arrow kind of attacks that he's famous for, and you are fully in control of that. And so there's a lot of ranged attacks that you have as Atreus, but you also have some pretty cool melee attacks as well. And there's magic infused attacks with your arrows. And of course, he's got a whole level up tree and a skill tree that he can grow through his weapons and through his character and his armor. It's not quite as robust as the experience that you're going to get out of Kratos. It's definitely weighted more in Kratos' favor. It's called God of War. But the Atreus elements were very satisfying and very fun and also revelatory. There's a lot of questions that we need answered because they're about Atreus. And so he goes on a full journey to try to get some of those questions answered, and that's incredibly satisfying as well. And we're introduced to some really cool side characters because of that, and new realms and new perspectives on realms that we've been to before and story bits that we've had before. I think you can tell I was just absolutely stunned by the creative collective that this game really exemplifies. I mean, PlayStation Studios is on another level in terms of production quality and investment into the creator. It's really head-scratching to think of this huge international public conglomerate investing so heavily in art like this, because this is profound art. This is just absolutely beautiful merge between what we know of linear entertainment, like watching a great movie or a great streaming series or something, and a video game. You feel that connection with these characters, and then you feel the emotion between these characters. And PlayStation Studios is really playing on a different level with things like The Last of Us and God of War and their Spider-Man games. and their Horizon games. I mean, the list is getting longer, and the breadth of titles that they're publishing is getting bigger and more impressive. I don't know if this is the very best of that, but I can tell you that I just got wrapped up watching the Lord of the Rings show on Amazon and House of the Dragons, and those were really cool, but this hit me more. This affected me more. This was more powerful. Rich in fantasy and escapism, but just a palpable emotional impact that I'm going to be thinking about forever, And I can't wait to see what happens now. I can't wait to see what Sony Santa Monica produces from here on out. All I know is that everybody was fully invested in building something special. It feels fantastic on the controller, and it just is sumptuous to behold. It's sumptuous to listen to. You just feel like you're watching state-of-the-art entertainment and consuming and playing state-of-the-art entertainment. God of War Ragnarok is divine. It's absolutely wonderful. I have some quibbles. Those invisible walls still bug me. But God, I just was floored. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful game. I'm going to give God of War Ragnarok a 10 out of 10.